This is a reply to a video about limerence, which is ultimately a reply to my video about limerence. So if this video doesn't make sense, go back and watch like 2 other videos. This is just going to be me kind of spitballing about limerence and throwing around some ideas. So thank you for your additions. I don't think they are necessarily corrections to what I was saying, but just additional experience from a very different perspective. You said you grew up in a household where you felt very loved and anger was actually encouraged and affirmed, whereas I grew up in a household where anger was not allowed. And so the proposal is maybe a lack of anger has nothing to do with limerence or won't help limerence. I also grew up in a household that was quote unquote very loving, and as I have deconstructed my life experience and sort of shown up with a lot of trauma symptoms, I've had to figure out kind of where that came from. And what I've arrived at is that I had improper attunement from my parents stemming from their childhoods with unsafe parents. So I had inherently pretty safe parents, pretty loving parents that were not at all emotionally attuned to themselves because of their traumas. And they just existed in the world. They had professional jobs and looked very normative. But from the children that have grown up out of several different households in my family, I can see that the children are not all right, and in fact, the parents are not all right. So sort of there is the story in my family that there was a lot of love being given. And I've made other videos, and I will make other videos in the future as to why that's not enough. You were talking about this essential lack of physical security and feeling okay and feeling like you can be an independent adult. I absolutely agree that limerence is in part coming from not enough selfhood. However, I think it has nothing to do with our overall level of independence. The childhood strategy that I ended up with was overly independent, overly functioning, and not able to ask others for help, not able to rely on others. So the theory that limerence would be coming from an over-reliance on others, I think is incorrect. But I think that it does come from an overall codependent pattern. And what I have found throughout my life is that I don't really know how to have a medium relationship with other people. I either know how to be hyper independent or hyper codependent, and I'll tend to vacillate between those two. But no matter what I'm doing with the current partner, I will tend to over obsess on them. And I don't think that comes from not being able to be independent, not being able to take care of myself, because I have always made enough money and been able to take care of myself. But I also have never really known myself. I've never known who I was, what I was interested in. I never developed the selfhood side. And so it's like when someone new would come into my life, there would be a lot of empty space in my life that I would take up with them. I would sort of take on their entire identity. It's almost as if I would say, oh, good, who you are, that's who I will be. And now I will know myself because I will be you. As I'm reading more about psychological concepts and parenting and talking to people about their experiences, the more that I just feel like a lot of our ills are caused by not being adults that know how to parent themselves. So a lot of therapy techniques are trying to get at the idea of teaching someone how to take care of themselves, how to parent their inner child, how to be a supportive person for themselves. And so many manifestations that I see in relationship troubles have to do with not being able to go to yourself for support. And I think that comes back to what we were both saying, which is all people need, number 1, love, and number 2, safety, in no particular order. And if one of those was not present, then all sorts of issues will show up: relational, mental health, addiction, all kinds of maladaptive coping mechanisms, all getting at that essential thing. Either I do not feel safe or I do not feel loved. And I don't know what your experience has been, but I have never truly felt safe, even though I was hyper independent. I never truly felt like I was going to be okay. And I still, to this day, have trouble feeling loved by others. So there's really the sense of not knowing what love feels like or what love is supposed to be. And yeah, there's just a bunch of thoughts on the table about limerence. I would love to hear what everybody thinks about that stuff.